for boxing. All right, y'all. I done already spoke on the Gary Russell Jr. and Devin Haney situation about how, it's a lot building and brewing in the background. A lot of tension because of the failed fighting and, Devin Haney's remarks about Gary losing. And, we know that there's talk about Gary Antuanne Russell potentially fighting Devin Haney at 140 if Devin Haney, comes up. I've heard it stated that that's not a makeable fight, that, those guys can't fight each other. PBC doesn't do business with Matchroom, etc. But I call bullshit on that as always. You know what I'm saying? Because I feel like when fighters really want to fight one another, fights can get made. You know what I'm saying? If they're both pushing for it and they're both asking for the fight, it can get made. Because, Devin, right now, he's one of the linchpins at 135. I've called him that several times. I truly believe that. Regardless of what people say about him being some email champion. And Devin has business at 135 that he's trying to take care of. Got nothing but respect and support from me for trying to go handle that business. I hope he gets the job done. Eventually, he's gonna come up out of 135 and go to 140. That's undeniable. Kid's young, he's growing. They keep talking about how much he's growing. It's only a matter of time before, he's up to 140. Gary Antuanne, don't know if he's gonna be there when Devin gets there, but the back and forth has already started, and what it looks like to me is that they're laying down the foundation for a potential matchup. Because y'all know me, I don't care a whole lot about the back and forth if it's not gonna yield a fight. If it's building up a fight that we're actually gonna get, I can appreciate it. But if it's just guys doing a whole bunch of talking and posturing online and it's not gonna yield a fight, I'm not all for that. That's why I don't do a whole lot of talking about what Gary Russell says about Terrence Crawford, or Terrence Crawford says about Gary Russell, or Gary Russell and Devin Haney say about each other back and forth, because it just doesn't look like a fight that's going to happen. But when you talk about two young, up-and-coming contenders, that fight makes all the sense in the world when you talk about Gary Antuanne and Devin Haney. They're only separated by one division. Everybody knows Devin Haney has aspirations to come up to 140. It's a fight that makes too much sense. You know what I mean? You got Gary Antuanne fighting guys who are past opponents of people like Terrence Crawford, and by him fighting Victor Postal, who he's fighting next, he already fought a guy immediately after Adrian Broner had fought the guy. I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head. I do apologize. But those are the type of things you want to see from a young fighter who's trying to carve out his lane and trying to stake his claim as a legit contender. When you can't get the top guys, you fight the guys that the top guys have already fought. And you know what I'm saying, or the legit, guys that are considered to be top tier fighters, whether they're in your division or not. So, when you look at Victor Postal has fought Terrence Crawford, he's fought Josh Taylor, and he's fought Jose Ramirez. So when you think about all of those guys, and those being at the time, some of the top guys at 140, if Gary Antuanne can go out there and beat Victor Postal, that's saying something. So, of course, if Devin Haney comes to the division, I'm sure that's not going to be like the first fight Devin wants to jump into, but maybe he does. Devin Haney is supposed to be one of the top, premier young up-and-coming fighters in the sport. If he comes to 140 after being undisputed, if he's able to become undisputed at 135, then I see no reason why he wouldn't jump right in there versus a guy like Gary Antuanne Russell. I mean, I wouldn't even, I wouldn't put it past him to jump in there with a guy like Josh Taylor. If Josh Taylor's still there, which I can't see being the case. But, to me, I feel like when you reach a certain level, you're supposed to be big game hunting. But when you can't get the top tier guys, you get the other guys that are aiming to become a top tier guy. So to me, This fight makes a lot of sense. According to Gary Antuanne, he's already stamped it with Al Heyman that, this is a fight he wants and got the seal of approval. Now, there are people who are saying that this is a fight that, can't be made because, Gary Antuanne is talking about he wants to do it in the future, this, that, and the other. Well, it can only happen in the future because right now they're not in the same division. But also, Devin Haney is trying to become undisputed at 135 and trying to get big fights at 135. So right now, Gary Antuanne is not on his radar, and Gary Antuanne also has the Victor Postal fight to deal with. So first things first, he needs to win this fight, and Devin needs to come up to 140. If Devin's not at 140, Gary Antuanne's not going down to 135. So I don't foresee that, the fight happening until they're both at 140. And who's to say that, if enough time passes before the fight could actually be made, Gary Antuanne Russell may end up leaving 140 and going on up to 147. So there's probably not a huge window for them to make this fight right now. Not right now, but in the near future. But if it's a fight that they both want to make, I'm not going to subscribe to these fights can't be made. I just don't believe that to be the case. I feel like a lot of these fights that we aren't getting can be made if both fighters who want the fights actually push for the fights and stonewall their handlers and say, look, this is what I want next. Kind of like Miguel Cotto and Antonio Margarito did when they wanted to fight each other. Because Bob Arum had more interest in putting the guys in fights with other people so that he could continue to eat off of both guys. And he didn't want them facing each other right at that time because of the potential of one of them ruining the other guy and hurting his money. But those guys pretty much stonewalled Bob and said, that's the only fight I want next. And Bob was forced to put those guys in the ring with one another. So when fighters really want to fight each other, fights can be made because nobody wants these promoters, managers, whatever. They don't want these guys sitting on the shelf not making them any money when they can put them in the ring with a guy that's willing to fight them, and they just got to come together to make the fights happen. But that's all I got on the D-Lo 404 Boxing. Like, share, comment, subscribe. I'm out. Peace.